Okay, I decided to do a really quick video on texture repacking and using Texture Graph. So Texture Graph is a plugin that's available in Unreal now. Just by searching Texture Graph, you'll get it. It's in, I don't know if it's in 5.4, but it's definitely in 5.5. It basically ends up looking like this. So why would we texture repack, first of all? So in our material, I have mine in particular, my master material set up for ORS, which is occlusion, roughness, and in my case, subsurface. This texture that I'm going to be repacking is roughness, subsurface, ambient occlusion. So it's in the wrong order. And although I could use this, or I could build switches, or I could build something, I'm using virtual texture streaming. So a lot of the time it's just a placeholder texture and you're just kind of streaming into that particular slot. I'm not hard referencing anything inside of my textures. And as a result, this should be set up differently. And quite often this happens. That's why Unreal has some editor utility things you can build for it, or you could build just a simple texture graph like I did here because it takes 2 seconds. So how you do this is we're just gonna, I'll just make one right here just to show you. You go to texture graph, and then you just call it whatever, new texture graph. Open it up, and you can grab a combine channels and a split channels. And as I was saying before, you're trying to get to ORS, and you have, so ORS, and right now we have RSA, which is sort of weird. But basically that ambient occlusion being the last one, we know that that's going to be our first one. And then the subsurface, which is the middle one, we want to be the last one. And then the roughness, which is the first one, we want to be the middle one. So that's how you set that up. Aside from that, you just grab your texture. So in particular, this RSA here. And then you plug that in. And all of a sudden, you have a different thing on the other side. Now, an important thing to note here is that inside of here, there is some extra settings as well. So you'll want to check the actual texture to make sure that you are setting it accordingly. So I'm just going to close this texture repacker. If I open this texture up, you'll see that it is set, the compression setting is set to masks, no sRGB. And then on sRGB, it says right at the end, this should be unchecked if using alpha channels individually as masks. There is the 3 textures on here. There is no alpha being used, which is typically used for a like an alpha mask, and that's where it's stored on our base color in this instance, or our albedo. And then inside of here, this is our texture graph again, and we're going to change this to be, where is it? Mask compression. Oh no, no, I just do it right here. Never mind. And I think that's all I have to change. Oh, and then uncheck that. So that should be everything. And typically what I'll do to get the naming convention the same, because I can just be lazy about it, is just rename, copy. And then I'll just rename this one quite often, just because I'm in a hurry, and go ORS on this. And then paste it into the output name. So now when I hit export, it's going to export that to, I believe, just my content directory. And that'll export as AORS, so I can do that, I guess. Oh, it did it right in the same file. Nice. So yeah, that's the new texture now in the correct order. And now I can use that one with my stuff instead of using this one. So that should be everything you need to use the texture packer. And just to show you what happens basically when it doesn't get used is I will switch this out for my master material here. So actually let's go to one that's really obvious, one with leaves and stuff. So that's when I find they get the most discolored. So I guess this one will work. And I'm going to change this to masked. And my master material uses virtual textures as well. So as soon as I do this, it's going to break it. Which means, obviously, nothing's working. So I want to go into here. I'm just going to grab all my textures just because I'm showing quickly. But you might want to be selective about this depending on what you're doing. Convert to virtual texture. Shouldn't take very long. There we go. Now when I go into here, what's it called? TX grass. And then this one, because we just called it ORS, I should just be able to find it. This one. Okay, so that should be correct now, and if it's not correct, I'll show you it in a second. So this is what it looks like when it is correct with the new material. There's going to be some color corrections and some different stuff that needs to be done because this just isn't the same thing, and mine uses two-sided normals, which will affect a lot of the shadows and junk. So that's fixed. But if I was to switch to this old RSA, not quite as bad on this one, but quite often you'll get really weird discolorations going on, particularly on one of the last sets I had. Some of the leaves would be green and some of them would be brown and stuff like that, and it was just the textures were in the wrong order. So yeah, this is a really simple way of just using a texture graph to reorder your textures, and then they'll work properly in your master materials, which will reduce your overall draw calls because you can get everything onto one material. It's especially useful with nanite, as I found out recently, because nanite, as long as everything's under one master material, it makes it very, very affordable for instancing, like ridiculously so. So, yeah, if anyone has any questions, just put them in the comments, and like and subscribe.